Hello and welcome to Huddersfield Town Extra Time. I am pleased to be joined by the ex-sports editor of the Huddersfield Examiner, Mel Booth, and Dave Hartrick, who works for Opta and the Examiner as well. Mel, if I start with you, that was a comfortable, routine 2-0 home win from Huddersfield Town against Hull City. That's about as pleasing a sentence as you can have on an early on a Saturday afternoon, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the game could have been fraught with problems, but it wasn't really. And Town did enough, efficiently enough, to get the 3 points, which is all it's about at the end of the day. The 2-0 scoreline didn't particularly flatter them, I didn't think. And, you know, there were an odd occasions when Hull had decent attacks and efforts on goal, but I never really felt that much in danger, to be perfectly honest. There were a couple of key moments, Raj, I thought. The second goal particularly came at exactly the right time from Dwayne Holmes. Fantastic finish. And that just really put the lid on it, because there'd been a chance just before that when I think Tom Lees made a great block on Lewis Potter to prevent them getting back to 1-1, and the second goal just killed it off after that. So I thought it was a very good team performance. There were some very good bits in there, in and among one or two flatter bits, but I thought overall it was a decent performance from Town, and the points are in the bag, which is what it's all about.
Oh yeah, that's all we need, lad. Thanks very much, Mel. That's kidding, Dave. Thanks for coming. If we start with the first half and the first goal that came really quickly, Dave, it was a scrappy one from a corner, a good delivery in from Danel Sanani, and Tom Lees was there to turn it over. I thought at first it might have been an own goal, but it does look as if Tom Lees with the final touch on it. I think that sort of set the tone for the rest of that opening sort of half an hour, because Hull didn't really lay a glove on Town for the rest of that half.
No, and I thought before the goal, I thought Town were all over them, to be fair. I thought they were playing really well, lots of crosses again, which is something that's been a feature of Town when they've been good this season. And they were good enough, you know, there was certainly no doubt in the fact they were good enough for that 1-0. They dragged their feet a little bit before half time. I think they'd sort of had a good look at Hull and realised they were reasonably comfortable. And to be fair, that's one of the performances that me and Stephen Chicken have been sort of asking for a long time, just a really comfortable, keep a team at arm's length, come away with a nice drama 3-2-0 win. That's what Huddersfield Town haven't done enough of for, you know, arguably 3 years. So they sort of built on that first half performance as well, because they'd given themselves the platform to, which again is something that Town haven't always done, to be honest with you. But yeah, I think by Opta's definition, it might have been an own goal, but I think they've been slightly charitable giving it to Tom Lees. But exactly right. I thought he was man of the match today, Tom Lees, so I think he deserves that goal.
He's one of those players, Tom, that I think flies slightly under the radar, because he's 7 or 8 out of 10 every week. He's dependable and he's always there. He's always fit. I know he prides himself on always being available, and that seems to have been the case at his time at Town so far. Dave, was there any point where pre-game you thought this might be a struggle for Town, because we've had a few key players away on international duty, you're bedding those players back in? Danel started today, Sorba started today. They're both away with their international sides, but there didn't really seem to be any sort of, you know, slow starting or mix up at all. It was straight back to it, and whatever work they've been doing in the international break seems to have worked really well.
Yeah, and I think sometimes it's a bit of a misnomer anyway, because I think if a player goes away and he's playing for his country, they often come back full of adrenaline. You know, like Sorba Thomas, I would imagine, was like a kid on Haribo for most of the week, because he's had, you know, the best couple of weeks of his life, really. So, I think if it's going to catch up with them, it's probably the Birmingham game where it's going to catch up with them rather than this game. And I think it was absolutely the right thing to do to go with what I think is probably Town's best attacking lineup, barring Josh Koroma on the left. But I think there's reason to rotate with Koroma. And again, you know, Dwayne Holmes came in, and I don't think anybody who watched that game could really say Dwayne Holmes wasn't worth his place. I thought he was excellent again throughout.
Yeah, Mel, if we discuss Dwayne for a moment, he's come on in the past couple of games and he's done really well when he has come on, and so he's earned that start. Do you think that's a good precedent for Carlos to be setting, to showing the lads with such competition in the squad? If you do play well, if you do impress with the minutes you do get, there is a chance to come into this team.
Yeah, indeed. And I think it illustrates the fact of what Carlos has said. I think this season he believes he's got 2 players at least for every position. And it's not going to weaken the team. Whichever one you select is not going to weaken the team. So Dwayne is one of those players who will fit in certain games. Today was the perfect example, as Dave just said, where he could come in. He wouldn't have been everyone's selection, I'm sure, but it was a very good move on the day, and he did a lot of good work. I mean, people will talk about the goal, which was a cracking finish, cutting in onto his right foot, finding that little bit of space, and then dispatching it into the corner. But he did a lot of good link-up work as well, a lot of good clearing up, and I thought, as Dave pointed out, Town started really, really well. With Thomas and Toffolo giving them space and finding space, giving them width and finding space. Jonathan Hogg was very positive early on as well, moving the ball forward. He comes in for criticism sometimes for going too square and too often too back. So I thought Hoggy was on that positive front foot as well. And Lewis O'Brien, for me, was all over the place as well. A really good performance from a midfield player that helps your team in every single aspect. He's taken a lot of knocks today, but he was here, there and everywhere, helping set up attacks, but doing the chunk of defensive work as well. And before I move off that, people won't probably talk much about Danny Ward today. Obviously, the goals against Blackburn in the last match got fantastic centre-forward service and made the most of it. Today, he did the hard graft. He did the real battling for lost causes, knocking defenders about, not giving them easy possession. And he did a hell of a job for the team. So he'll probably barely get a mention, but he did a terrific job for the team today as a hold-up number 9. And it allowed other people to do things around him and the team to be more cohesive. So, there were some very good things in there, Raj.
Yeah, I think they're great points, Mel. Dave, Mel's gone through a few players, but I think today was all about it being a team performance. And although there were a few players that have obviously had great performances, nobody had a bad performance per se. Everybody was at it. There was a cohesiveness about the way they pressed right from the very first minute until the last. Is that one of the good things to see about today and take from today, that even the subs that came on, Naby Sarr, Ollie Turton, Scott Hyde, they came in and slotted in straight away. There was never a drop off. There was no loss at all, and that's the sort of thing, finishing the day in 6th place in the Championship and in the playoffs, that Town can build on and take forward and gain confidence from.
Yeah, well, it's proof of a few things, really. It's proof of the recruitment drive over the summer, and as Mel mentioned, having that sort of 2 players for every position that you're comfortable with, it's a huge difference. And I think the way Carlos Corberán manages and the way he likes to coach and even the way he likes to train, I think he actually prefers having a bit of a smaller squad. And last season, having a very big bench, I don't think suited him, to be honest with you. I think he's far better sort of having a plan and being able to drop pieces in and out of that plan as he wants to. And I think that achieving that sort of 6 out of 10 from everybody in the team as a minimum is the thing that Town have really struggled with. There's been extremes of players who played really, really well and extremes of players who've gone through really bad patches where they've struggled. There's never a lack of effort. There is never a lack of effort. But having a sort of collective sort of bottom level of form that you can all reach allows you to win a game like that 2-0. It wasn't like it was the sort of barest of effort or anything like that, but that's what you achieve when you can all find a level that you're comfortable with and play with. So I think that is the sort of model of how Town wants to go on this season. I don't know if they're going to end up in the playoffs, but playoff teams find ways to just consistently churn out results without, it's not about winning 5-0 every week. It's the 2-0 wins that add up over the course of the season that make the difference, in truth. So, Yeah, it's very, very positive at the moment. And having that depth in the squad, having a player like Scott Hove started the season brilliantly, and now he's getting some time on the bench, just shows the levels at the moment within the team, and that's can only be a positive thing.
Yeah, Mel, if we take that positivity, and I mean no disrespect about this, you've forgotten more about Huddersfield Town than I'll ever know. I mean, your time covering the team. How does this team rank with what you've seen here across the years at Town? Obviously, people will immediately think of the David Wagner side and things while we're sat in the playoff places, but the feeling around the club, the atmosphere, the positivity, as Dave touched on, is that right up there for you as far as you're concerned?
Yeah, I mean it's a difficult one to answer that, Raj, because it is difficult to compare across time zones and all the rest of it. But I think we're still waiting to see is the honest answer. It's that early in the season. We've been through 3 years of real trauma, basically, and we're coming back into something which is more like settled football sort of aura, really. And this team, they've certainly got something about them. There's no two ways about that. And there are certain individuals in there who are very exciting and look like they could be, it was great to see the fans applauding Sober Thomas walking all the way around the outside of the pitch when he was brought off, and him returning that applause. That was great to see. He's one of the young players who's in there doing really well. Another player today who probably won't get mentioned for me is Lee Nichols, who's, what a terrific signing that lad's been. He's made a big impact in the early part of the season. We hope that this team can go on and challenge for the playoffs like other teams have done. The Steve Bruce team did back in the day. Under Peter Jackson, they were top of this division as well. So you go back and there have been times when Town have had really good opportunities at the top end of this division and didn't quite work out, obviously, until David Wagner worked the magic. But I think we're waiting to see the best from this team. I think there's much more to come, Raj, and that's very encouraging and exciting after the 2 or 3 seasons that we've endured.
Let me rephrase that question and put it to you instead then, Dave, because I think Mel's right about it possibly being a bit too early to have that conversation. But is this the sort of start to a season that, given the position the club had been in the past few years, Huddersfield needed to set a tempo and an atmosphere that brought the fan base and the team back together and gave a mood about the place that we perhaps missed?
Yeah, the thing is, I think that, I know it's early in the season, but there's a quarter of the season gone, so you can see patterns, you can see that things aren't happening by accident, and the positivity that's there this season, when it's no secret, I've said on the Town podcast and I've said in a couple of pieces, and I said to people at the time, the good start to last season I would never really bought into, because a lot of the fundamental issues within the squad and within the team weren't moving, things weren't changing. They just were picking up some results. What you're seeing this time is Town are earning those wins and they're getting those wins. It's not, they're earning precisely what they should at the moment. Now, a playoff team over the course of the season, I honestly don't know, because at some point Town will have a little bit of a sticky patch. I think it's a mad league, as we know. I think there's a few teams that aren't playing up to their potential. I think their very next game is against one of those teams who really should be doing better than they are, so that's a big test. But what you can't deny is the fact that the football is more cohesive. The errors aren't there, because last season, as Mel knows, we sat and watched players like Naby Sarr play really, really well, but then every so often just switch off, and it always costs Town. That isn't happening this season. They've got a goalkeeper who breathes calm into the rest of the back of the defence. They've got Tom Lees in the centre who breathes calm into those around him. The fundamental things that needed changing are changing. They still have creativity issues. They still need to score more goals. But if you can build on a proper defensive base, as they are, that can take you a fair way. And you've got to remember, progress for Town this season would be a nice, comfortable, mid-table, drama-free season where nobody's looking over their shoulders come the back end. So the fact that we've got this start to build on already is enough.
Yeah, it's an interesting one going into that Birmingham game, Mel, because on paper it looks almost quite similar to the Nottingham Forest game that we lost here at home 2-0. Birmingham haven't won in their last 5 and they haven't scored in their last 5, and a lot of people will be expecting a repeat performance from Town to almost win just by turning up, and that doesn't happen in the Championship, as Dave says. So what the Town have to do between now and Wednesday night to ensure that we get a positive result against Birmingham, we build up the type of momentum we need going into a hard game against Bournemouth away next week.
Yeah, I think for one thing, we've got to keep it tight at the back. I mean, no giveaway goals at all. We can't afford that at all because, as Dave rightly pointed out, we don't score masses of goals. So we've got to keep that steady, tight ship. But there's been enough encouragement today, certainly in counter-attacking, where people have been able to find space and find opportunities, and people have been making good runs where we can get after Birmingham City. And we need to create that little bit of attacking intent and incisiveness, keep the cohesion. We need to keep that going because we started really well today against Hull City, and we then took our foot off the gas when we got one goal up in front. Somehow we didn't manage to keep it going, and I think we're going to find it hard against Birmingham. If we do get in front, I think we need to try and keep our foot on the gas, but ultimately we've got to keep it tight at the back. No silly mistakes and give away goals at the back, and we should be able to put ourselves in a position to get another 3 points, which would be fantastic.
Mel, I'm gonna put my last question to you as well, and lean on your experience once again, because I thought the atmosphere that was at the ground today, well over 17,000 in, which is a brilliant number. The Worthington walkers that had walked 22 miles in memory of Frank Worthington as well, setting it off, doing their lap of honour before the game, was a lovely touch and sort of feeds into the values and everything that this club stands for. Mm. That identity that Huddersfield are starting to regain and find this season, and having that shown within the ground, is that something we need to try and keep going at the John Smith Stadium, and that's starting on Wednesday night against Birmingham?
Yeah, I mean, without a doubt, I think it comes from the performances on the pitch. The fans feed off that, don't they? Everybody. It has been a good atmosphere today because people are liking much more of what they're seeing from this team. They're liking the performances that they're putting in. They're liking individuals and the way that they're going about it. But it's all coming together nicely, actually, for this point in the season, a quarter of the way in. And the Blackburn match, for instance, was terrific entertainment, absolutely terrific. So if we can keep that level of entertainment going, people will come along and they will support because they're enjoying themselves. That's what's been missing at times over the last 2 or 3 seasons. People haven't enjoyed it. The football hasn't been that watchable, particularly at times. But now we've got individuals in there to excite, and we've got a team who seem to have that Huddersfield mentality where everyone is battling for each other, and it's working. Certainly for large parts of games at the moment. And if we can keep that going, people will buy into it. There's no doubt about that, Raj.
Well, if you want to buy into it and you're enjoying it, then there's still tickets available for Wednesday night here against Birmingham City. And I think Mel wrapped that up quite nicely. So, Dave, thank you very much for your time. We'll see you again shortly. And Mel, thank you as well for your time and input as well. Thank you to Sportsbroker for sponsoring the show as ever. And we'll speak to you before the Birmingham City game.